Hello there, I'm Jimmy Vegas, and in this mini Unity tutorial I'm going to show you how you can create a location introduction sequence. This tutorial is sponsored by John Games, so if you guys are looking for a channel with plenty of content, gaming and creativity, John's channel is the place to go. You should probably check out some of his socials too, and stay up to date with all his latest content. Loads of stuff to see. You can find all kinds of games on there, some Grand Theft Auto stuff, even a couple of tutorials that even I haven't covered. If you fancy being sponsored in one of these tutorials, just like John Games, all you need to do is click that join button below and become a sponsor. Now, on with the tutorial. Don't forget, click the subscribe button and click on the bell icon as well to stay up to date with every tutorial I upload to my channel on video game development. There's always loads to see, loads to learn, and loads to do. With that in mind, let's get to work. So for those of you who don't quite understand what I mean by location introduction sequence, it's basically whenever you reach, let's say, a certain place on the map or a town or something, and it will flash up on screen and nicely fade in and say wherever the place is and like whatever the town is, like Town of Light or Forest of Darkness or something like that, and then it obviously fades away. So we're going to create all of that together, and we're going to create it nice and sequenced so as it all occurs at the very same time. Just a couple of different animations to work out how it all flows together. So first things first, let's start by addressing what we have here. It's just a scene with a camera with a 15-second animation on, which kind of pans around a little bit. And what we're going to do is, you've probably seen in the thumbnail already, this place is called Meadowood, the Forest of Illusion. So we're going to create that whole sequence. Now the first thing I want to do is have a little line expand itself from the center, which is going to split the name of the place and the description of the place. So let's go to Game Object, let's go to UI, let's go to Raw Image. And I'm going to double click so we can see it. Let's zoom out so we can see the canvas in full. We're going to keep it centered, 0 and 0 on the position. Width is going to be 0 to start with because I don't want it to even be there when the animation starts. And height is going to be probably about 10, I think. Yeah, 10 should do the trick. So the idea of all this is it's going to span over the course of about 10 seconds. So over the course of 10 seconds, this particular object is going to expand and stay expanded. So after 3 seconds, it'll be complete, and then we'll start the top one and then do the bottom one, and then after 10 seconds, it dissipates. So let's start by going to animation and let's clicking on create. And we'll have this as just divide. Obviously, you can call this animation anything you want, save it anywhere you want. Let's press the record button and set the very first keyframe, which means the width is going to be 0. So I'm just going to set 1 and set back to 0. So like I say, after 3 seconds, that is going to be completely expanded. So that means that working at 60 frames a second, we go to frame 180. At frame 180, we have the width as 400. And obviously this can be any size you want depending on your game itself and how you're making it. I'm using 400 because when I've tested this out, 400 was what I needed. So just make sure you have the right size there. So after that, we're going to go to frame 600, which is 10 seconds. And I'm also going to retype 400. Now what that means is that the animation for the first 3 seconds will occur, but the animation for the remaining 7 seconds isn't really an animation, it just exists as it is. But we do need it to fade out for, let's say, 2 seconds after that. So 2 seconds after that is frame 720. And that means that the color is going to go alpha down to 0, fading it out. And let's press the record button once again to stop. And if I press play, we'll start seeing how this animation is going to be played out. So now at this point, we'd have the top and bottom start. So you notice it started fading out there as well, earlier than it should have done. So what we'll do is we will head here on this first keyframe, and we'll make sure we set the alpha as 255. And we'll also go to frame 180 and make sure we set the alpha to 255 there. And then again, frame 600. Is it 600? Yes, it is. And make sure we do set the alpha as 255 there. That way it will prevent any fading before the 10-second mark. And we can see the fading has completely gone. It will wait until it gets that 10-second mark before it starts fading out. Okay, so next thing we need to do is let's create the next section, which is going to be the title of this place. So let's go to Game Object, UI, Text, and I'm going to change the font. Let's have the font as something different. And this place is going to be called Meadowood with 1 W. Font size, quite large, I think. 100, I'm thinking. Color we'll have as white, and we just need to expand so we can see it. There we go. And let's get the alignment right. And what it all comes down to is you just adjusting your game as it stands. Let's just make sure this looks okay if we press play. Yep, that should do the trick. So let's now work with this. So what we're going to do is create an animation, and we'll have this as just location. Again, you have the animation name called whatever you want to. And let's press record. And the very first keyframe, we're going to have the color as 0 on the alpha. And we're only going to have this fading in after 3 seconds, i.e. when the divider is complete. So that means that frame 180, this now starts fading in. So we still set the frame alpha as 0, which means that it'll be completely invisible for the first 3 seconds. And I want it to fade in over 2 seconds instead of 3, like the original game object we did. So we add 2 seconds to this, which takes us to frame 300. At this point, we have the alpha set as 255. And remember, just like the other objects, we want it to fade out after the 10-second mark. That means that frame 600, we also want it to be 255, which means it's solid for those 5 seconds. From frame 300 to 600, it stays solid, which means that frame 720, it has completely faded out. Now, I'm not going to test this just yet. I'm going to create the next section, which is going to be just below it. So let's duplicate that text, and let's change the font size to 50, half the size. And let's move it just below to about there. And we'll have this called the, let's put in capitals, the Forest of Illusion. Just something fancy, you know. And next thing we need to do is we need to create an animation for this one. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new clip, because this one is not going to be named location. It's going to be named description. I've done that in capitals, but it doesn't matter too much, to be honest. So let's press record, and once again, let's have the alpha set as 0 to begin with. Now, I want this to only appear after Meadowood has appeared, which means 5 seconds. So 300 for the frame. We still need the alpha to be 0. And I want this to fade in again over 2 seconds. So we add 120 frames to this. So frame 420. That means that we want it to be, let's just find, yeah, so frame 420, we want the alpha to be 255. So here what we've done is the first 5 seconds, nothing happens. Then for 2 seconds, it fades in. And then just like the other two, at frame 600, we set the alpha to 255 once again to keep it solid. And then at frame 720, we then set the alpha back to 0 and stop the recording. So now I'm just going to set each one of those without the loop time, those 3 animations. And now if we press play, hopefully this should all flow in a very nice sequence. Okay, so what's happened there is text 1 has decided it's not going to do exactly what I want. It has decided, hang on, is that right? So after 3 seconds that fades in. I'll tell you what, I'm going to make sure I get this right. I'm going to redo that and just make sure that that did work as intended. So the description one, I think we did that wrong. Or I did that wrong, I should say, shouldn't I? So let's try that again. UI text, and let's have the Forest of Illusion. Now I'm probably going to leave this little boo-boo in the recording because generally I like to show just how much even someone that's been doing it for many years can still make schoolboy errors, we'll call them. So 50, and we have Forest of Illusion. Let's have that centered. Okay, so that's all fine. Let's make sure we get this correct. I'll actually rename that to description as well, just in case. And create, and we'll have desk. And again, I'm just quickly naming these. You name them something relative to what you're actually doing. So we want the color to start as 0. And after 5 seconds, which is frame 300, we still want it to be 0. And at frame 420, which is 2 seconds further, we want it to fade all the way in. And then 600, we still want it to be all the way at 255. And then 720, we want it to fade out completely. So you see how quick I redid that animation there. Once you know what you're doing with this kind of thing, it's so easy just to kind of keep going and get it right. So now let's test this out. Cool. And it should fade out. Awesome. So it's as quick and simple as that. Yes, I made a little boo-boo there, but you know what? It just shows how human I am. We all make little boo-boos here and there. But overall, it's a really easy thing to accomplish. It's an easy effect to create. And obviously, depending on where you are, you can reuse these. You can get scripts to modify whatever the location name is. So you don't have to keep creating it over and over again. You can just change whatever the text says for the name and the description. So I hope that's helped you out, guys. And if you want to know any more, just leave a comment below. And great community here. Someone will probably help you out, if not me. Hopefully I'll see you in another tutorial. Thanks very much for watching, guys.